For tens of millennia, one man sought to model and shape humanity's future with the precision of an architect and the cold detachment of a chess grandmaster. Over the ages, he has donned countless names, but perhaps the two most defining are Master of Mankind and, of course, the Emperor. To students of his tragedy, he represents the ultimate expression of the smart person's error. This is the hubris of believing that if one's intellect is vast enough, you can bend the laws of reality and shape them to your will. It is when knowledge and intellect are mistaken for wisdom. The smart person's error can also be seen as a consequence born from a biased blind spot, an inability to see one's flaws or errors yet identifying them in others. The Imperium's narrative states that without the Emperor's intervention, humanity was all but guaranteed to perish. However, one only needs but a glance at the state of things in the 41st millennium to crumble the fleeting foundations upon which this Imperial Lie is built. As of late M41, the Imperium of Man is a fully fledged theocracy, one that is fueled and controlled using ignorance as well as the blind worship of the Emperor as a god. Humanity has also been embroiled in wars since the time of the Emperor's galactic crusade, and in case you're wondering if things could possibly get any worse, well, it is called the Grimdark for a reason. As it turns out, while cut off from terror during the heresy, a contingent of loyalist forces desperate to rejoin the war effort unknowingly rang the galactic dinner bell, one that was answered by ravenous space cockroaches. And speaking of dinner bells, the Imperium also grinds countless of dead into corpse starches, food for the living. Oh, you've also got traitor primarchs and their legions that have been running amok ever since the time of the heresy. So much so that everything I just mentioned is happening in the backdrop of a galaxy that's been split in half by literal hell. Just to take stock, humanity not only has to contend with demonic incursions targeting their souls, but also countless hosts of tyrannies whose sole intent is devouring every morsel of biomass in the galaxy. This report card by any measure of the word is not a victory, not even close. It is instead a millennia-long and galactic-spanning crime scene. One where the prime suspect sits interred upon the golden throne in a state of unending madness caused by his tortured existence. In order to fully grasp the magnitude of this disaster, this clusterfuck that is the Imperium of Man, an in-depth evaluation of the Emperor's actions is required. We need to perform a comparative analysis of the Emperor via a prism of his contemporaries. I'm of course referring to the kings of old night, fellow warlords he would eventually go on to defeat on his path to unifying terror. Men like Narthan Dume of the Pan-Pacific or Callaghan of Ush, bona fide tyrants and gene-tyrants that would twist human flesh into weapons. All those kings of old night had egos the size of mountains. However, no matter how great their ambition was, it still had a ceiling. Doom wanted a continent. If he failed, only a few hive cities would burn. If Callaghan unleashed demons he could not control, the worst case scenario was probably the corruption of his mountain range. The point I'm trying to make is, the hubris, arrogance, and ambition of these despots was linear, and therefore their failures were in turn localized. When they all ultimately fell, the resulting damage was contained by the planet's geography. When it comes to the Emperor, as the saying goes, he was built different. This was a man that would not be content with a mere continent like Doom or even all of Terra for that matter. What his ego demanded was complete dominion over the entirety of humanity throughout the galaxy. To this end, he sought to engineer the evolution of the entire species as well as indoctrinate with his imperial truth. The implication being, the Emperor was attempting to redefine the very nature of what it meant to be human. And because the scope and magnitude of his ambition was so vast, so too was his failure, a failure that lit flames to the galaxy and resulted in the fracture of reality. The Emperor's story is a chronicle of an ambition so absolute, a genius so profound that, try as he might, he could not fail in a small way. His singular and unshakable confidence meant that he built a system that could only function if he was right about everything and in perpetuity at that. Unfortunately, though, for him and by extension for all of humanity, this turned out not to be the case. And so, instead of a shield, he unwittingly built a trap, one that snapped shut on humanity's neck, where it has stubbornly remained for more than 12,000 years. In this series, we seek to explore the cascade of catastrophe left in the wake of the Emperor's miscalculations. The goal is to analyze the smart person's error, as it is quite evident in many of his actions and decisions. This, of course, dating back to the Unification Wars on Terror, all through the Galactic Crusade, then the heresy, culminating with his internment upon the Golden Throne. We will unpack this legacy of hubris, arrogance, and ambition, detail how more than 12,000 years later, its ripple effects continue to influence, mold, and shape humanity's destiny. Welcome to this retrospective on the birth of the Grimdark, a study on the cost of being the smartest person in the room, or, in the case of the master of mankind, the smartest human in an entire galaxy.